An unprecedented debate night in America. The vice president against the former president. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with our country's future at stake. We are live from your local election headquarters with everything that you need to know and a live interactive poll on WFLA.com. Hello there to you folks. JB here with you in the Stream Center. And we are now about 25 minutes away from the debate stage being illuminated with the presence of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I am illuminated with the presence of WFLA political anchor Ty Russell and our political analyst from, of course, St. Petersburg College, joining us on Zoom, Tara Newsom, who is, Tara, you're hyped up on coffee and you are ready to go for debate night, aren't you?
I'm ready. It's debate day. I'm excited. This is all about democracy and we're about to see it in action.
We're gonna be really diving into politics here, of course, over the next 20 to 25 minutes. And then, of course, we're going to be running our poll, and then during the debate itself, you'll be able to watch on virtually every platform. ABC News is the host for the debate tonight. And then afterwards, that's when things really get interesting, because we're going to open up our official WFLA.com poll to ask you who you thought won the debate. Not who you're going to vote for, not who your preferred candidate is, who you think won the debate tonight. And Tara, I'm really excited to get into the conversation here. Tara, why don't we start with you, and then Ty, feel free to hop on in. Tara, what is at stake tonight, and what are the expectations that America has? Set the table for us, if you will.
Well, we all have heard the story that this is the very first time they're going to meet. So Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have sparred for many, many years, but this is the first time they're going to be on the debate stage. And let's just talk about optics first. First off, he is over 6 foot tall. She's just 5'6". Their podiums are very close together. So the optics are going to be very interesting to see if he's channeling that Hillary Clinton debate style, where he was the big man on the stage and sort of using his body language to sort of set that he's the authoritarian, the one that's stronger, the one that is the adult in the room. And so we're really going to be watching whether Kamala Harris can fight against that with a presidential demure kind of tenor. And so I think we're really waiting to see if he brings that bombastic style that he's brought to the previous 6 presidential debates, and whether she can bring that new strategy that she really flexed last week when she was asked about her race. And she said, that's an old playbook. And if she can bring that to the table, that'll really provide a stark contrast between the two candidates. And I think that's what the 18% of America who's still undecided are really looking for. Why should they vote for Kamala Harris? They know Donald Trump, but why should they vote for her? So she's going to be reintroducing herself, continuing to tell the story that she began when she ran for vice president at the DNC, when she stepped into the role of the presidential nominee, talking about her life as a prosecutor, as a state attorney general, as a U.S. senator, and of course, as vice president, coming from a middle-class family, the daughter of immigrants, the daughter of a single mother home, really resonating with middle-class America. And I think he's going to continue to point out the weaknesses of the Biden-Harris presidency and really try to tie Kamala Harris to Joe Biden and the narrative that he's had. So we're really tonight watching, does Donald Trump bring his Trump game, which we've seen before? And if Kamala Harris can remain unflustered and really dive into those issues, dive into those policies, be likable, and also appeal to the policies that really everyday Americans are wanting to talk about, like inflation, border control, and foreign policy.
There's a lot. Ty, I'm going to bring you in here in just a second. Just 2 quick notes really quickly. One, I want to take everybody to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I want to show everybody, kind of set the scene, if you will, and just tell everybody that we do have live cameras around the debate hall. We hope to have a debate stage shot momentarily. And then I want to show everybody this. This is live on WFLA.com. In fact, these are new results that are loading in right now. Here they are. You can go to WFLA.com/poll to vote right now. It is a no sign up, 1-click poll. And these results, you can see they're going to be bouncing here. We'll be spotlighting this over the course of our live stream. So as you vote on your phone, your tablet, your computer, again, it's just 1 click. You don't have to put in your name, your information. 1 click on WFLA.com/poll. We'll see the results populate here, and we'll keep tabs on this over the course of the coming 20 minutes or so. Political anchor Ty Russell.
And I know you had a live shot there of the debate room or that room over in Philadelphia. And it's interesting that Florida Senator Rick Scott is in the spin room for former President Donald Trump. And I should also note that the senator is also seeking Trump's endorsement because the senator is trying to replace Mitch McConnell as the leader of the Republicans in the Senate if he is reelected here in Florida. But Tara, I do want to talk about some of the topics that may come up first. My gut is telling me probably immigration, since that's news of the day after J.D. Vance spread a conspiracy theory online about Haitian immigrants eating animals. So do you believe that immigration will be one of the first topics to come up during this debate, especially since Republicans have been calling the vice president the border czar, especially after that?
I call it a draw on the topic, but you can't get away from Rick Scott that fast, okay, Ty? Because we've got to acknowledge that Rick Scott, of course, is running in a very contested senatorial race, and that he only won Florida by 10,000 votes. So there's a real good reason why he's cozying up to Donald Trump, and of course that wanting to be kind of kingmaker of the U.S. Senate is part of it. But let's go back to the issues, and those issues, of course, are top of mind of immigration. I think many Americans are scratching their heads, thinking, why are we positioning our Haitian Americans in this position where they'd have to defend against something that's absolutely ridiculous, like eating somebody's cat? So I think Americans are leaning in on this kind of story, but I think they're also leaning in because it also reveals the kind of controversial policy positions that are coming out of the Trump J.D. Vance camp. It's not just the immigration piece, and that Kamala Harris is going to have to defend and really explain that she was never the border czar, that she was tasked with a totally different job, and that she actually brought a bipartisan, very tough immigration reform bill to Congress, had support, and that Donald Trump killed it openly for political reasons. So as long as she lays that out, I think Americans will understand that. But I think there's something at play here. It's not just the ugliness with immigration. I think it's either immigration or women's issues. And the reason I say that is because highlighting the Trump-Vance controversies isn't just the rhetoric about immigration, it's their controversies regarding women. And it's a toss-up on whether they go with immigration or women's issues. And I say that also because we're in Florida, and we know this week a lot of voters are confused. Does Donald Trump support Amendment number 4, enshrining in the state constitution the right to abortion and reproductive rights, or is he against it? There's been a lot of conflict between him and the messaging of his campaigns. So I think it's a toss-up between those two, and I think Americans are really leaning in to really understand what was Harris's role on immigration, what will she do now, and how can Donald Trump necessarily explain why he directed Republican leadership to kill that bill, and what will happen if either one of them becomes president. And then they're also going to have to answer the question of whether Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, how they really stand on women's issues.
Both candidates neck and neck in the polls. We're going to dive into, who has more to lose tonight. Not to mention, we're going to dive into the moderators and the debate rules, because the format of a debate dictates, of course, how a debate ultimately unfolds. But again, want to remind our audience that we are live on WFLA.com/poll, where you can vote. We'll load these new results here on your screen again. And we'll monitor this over the coming minutes. Again, the time is now 8:44 Eastern, and the debate begins at 9 o'clock Eastern. Right now, Donald Trump holding a lead amongst our poll viewers and our poll voters on WFLA.com, but you can vote right now on WFLA.com/poll. Let's talk about the format, Tara, and starting, of course, with ABC moderators David Muir, Lindsay Davis. They're going to be, of course, the ones between these two tonight with no live audience, and we know that the mic will be switched off. There's only a set number of minutes that they can each speak. It'll kind of ping pong back and forth. Ty, I'm curious too. You've covered a lot of debates, so I'm going to bring you guys both up here on screen. Debate format, what are the expectations tonight? Does it favor one candidate over the other? Do we expect it to get nasty? Tara, why don't we start with you?
I think there's a couple interesting points. the campaigns went back and forth whether the mic should be on or off. And there's a lot of discussion on whether it would benefit Harris or Trump if it's on or off. And in fact, ABC has actually said, hey, wait a minute. Nothing in our discussions and agreements with the campaign says that in the middle of the debate, if there's something newsworthy, that we can't turn those mics back on. So I think we're watching to see if that's a murky area, that if there's something really contentious, that they go ahead and activate those mics. But I do think that what we're really watching for is it's not just what is said on the mic, it's body language, it's posturing, it's really all that stuff that's said without saying a word, and whether or not Donald Trump can be disciplined and measured, and whether Kamala Harris can become presidential and unbothered. Really, the world is really watching is she able to take on this, what some people call an autocrat? If she can, then she can take on the Putins of the world and other global leaders. And so we're really watching to see if she can handle that. But the debate format, it's really a toss-up on whether it's really going to matter one way or the other. We do know that Donald Trump loves an audience, and by not having one there, he can't necessarily get that feedback that he really does enjoy and really makes him a successful debater.
I knew that the Harris campaign was expecting, or they were at least hoping, that the mics would stay on because their plan was to have the former president probably interrupt the vice president a lot. And they wanted to paint the former president as someone who is not well behaved, someone who is combative. They were hoping that the American people were able to see that. So I wonder, what will the vice president do to try to get under the former president's skin, to try to get those moments to show the American people that they think that the former president is combative. So I wonder if she has some lines lined up or anything like that.
Yeah.
Hi, I think you're a good strategist. You should be helping them prep for the debate. I think that is such a great point. And actually, this morning I was thinking, as I was watching the debate preparations unfold, America desperately wants civil discourse. We want to end the divisiveness. And that's going to be some of the message that I think the Harris campaign brings forward. But I think the campaign is rubbing their hands, hoping for what Ty just said, that we'll really see the former president sort of maybe come unhinged a little bit. And he's shown that in the last few weeks as it's gotten closer to this debate. He's really had political rhetoric that doesn't necessarily match in the situation that he's in. That's going to bring up a really important point. And Ty, I'm curious about what you think about this too, because I know we're both watching this closely. Donald Trump was able to push aside a current president from his run for the next term. He did that with questions of mental acuity and age and an inability to communicate effectively. Those same points are going to be on full display tonight. And if you're right, if the Harris campaign has peppered her preparation with questions that might unveil that in Donald Trump, will he end up being taken off his perch by the same issues that he was able to unseat Joe Biden with?
And I know the national conversation has not been much on the former president and his age and mental abilities. And that's interesting because he's very close in age to President Biden. And so I'm thinking that the Harris campaign, they're trying to show that, to start that narrative up again, because it kind of has faded away, really, within the last recent weeks. Right after, I believe, President Biden dropped out of the race, there were conversations about, oh, wait, now former President Trump is the old man now in this race. And then when he had some hiccups in the rallies, especially during the time when he answered the question during a Fox News town hall, I believe, about childcare, and he was described by many journalists and strategists as rambling, and it was an incoherent statement. So we are waiting to figure out what the vice president's camp will do and what Vice President Harris will do to try to show those moments of what other people have accused him of doing at these rallies, of rambling or not making or making comments that don't quite make sense. So it's very interesting with this debate on age and mental acuity.
It is, but let me just remind ourselves of the fact that he is masterful on that debate stage. And so even if he goes down a rabbit hole of some sort. He knows how to spin it. He knows how to mitigate it. And quite frankly, 46% of America have already said it doesn't matter about those 34 felony convictions. It doesn't matter about his civil lawsuits that resulted in a $5 million judgment on sexual assault. They are standing loyal. So when we talk about what's at stake in this debate, it's not that 46% of his base. It's that 18% of America that the polls this weekend showed are leaning more male. They're leaning more non-formally educated. And can Kamala Harris actually convince them to come and vote for her? And will it be because they're worried about their sisters, their mothers, their wives, their daughters, and reproductive rights? Are they going to listen to her narrative, which is much different than Trump's narrative about her, that she was able with Joe Biden to bring unemployment to historic lows, that they had infrastructure that's invested in across the country? Are they going to believe her? And so his performance is going to be interesting, and we're certainly going to be pulling it apart, but hers is more like make or break. Can she make the case to America that 18% should take a chance with her?
So basically, when I talked to State Rep Mike Beltran earlier today, he made that point, saying that people know the former president. They either like him or they don't. Most of the eyes will be on the vice president to see what she says, how she says it, how she looks while saying it. And do you think that there's a double standard? Because people are probably not looking at, a male like that. They probably will look at a woman like that. So do you think that there's a double standard here on what she's wearing or anything like that?
Listen, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump's comments on the campaign trail say it all. This week, we had former President Trump defend against a judgment that he had. And his comments really, I think, highlight how those that support the president and J.D. Vance really think. And what he said was, she wouldn't have been the chosen one if I was going to sexually assault someone. And that kind of rhetoric really shows that there is a double standard in political life. There is a double standard sometimes in the way that we evaluate assault and other things. And we're hoping to mitigate that. We're hoping that these candidates can level the playing field with the robustness of their policies. And so, I think that the reality is that women in politics face a different challenge than men. But right now we're in a kind of situation in which we've got to drill down onto the policies that will really change the future of America. And I'm hoping we can set aside whether it's a man or a woman, whether you're black or white, and really say, hey, what are we going to do about education? What are we going to do about climate change? What are we going to do about inflation? And really draw up a vision of America that both Republicans and Democrats can get behind. And that's the story that both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have to tell tonight.
Politics about the issues? Tara, I can't recall the last time it felt like politics in this country were about the issues and about policy. Tara Newsom joining us, Ty Russell joining us here as well. Really important for me to point out, while this live stream, we have some interesting conversation, of course, here ahead of the debate. The most important stream of the night will be the moment that the debate ends. On WFLA.com, we are opening up our one-click poll to ask you who you thought won. So we're going to be back live right after the debate concludes. Ty will be on broadcast television. Myself and Tara will be here live to go over the big moments, go over the maybe more subtle moments, things that might have not caught America's attention. We're going to break it all down and discuss it. But really important, we're going to look at the poll results as to who you think won the actual debate, and that poll will be live on WFLA.com/poll. Let's try over the next few minutes really quickly, you guys, just spotlight a couple of commenters that have been joining us on WFLA.com/poll. When you vote in the poll, you guys, there's a little area down underneath where you can actually submit a comment, and that comment will then populate right here on my screen. Like Caribou Jade says, go Trump. Teresa says, we need peace. You see the comments there on the center of your screens. Salsa895 says Harris has the know-how and knowledge and is educated. Let's see. Going to Virgo. Donald loves America and Americans. He truly wants us all to be happy and safe and successful. And we'll see a couple of more. We'll try to, Amanda says, I don't even have words. That's her only comment there. I don't even have words. That's just interesting there. David says Harris is more tough than Trump. And then Brandon, I've seen a lot of comments from Brandon because you can, on the poll form, you can put in whatever name or username that you want. And as you would expect, some creative names and usernames are popping in. But look, the comments here are valuable to us because it gives us an idea as to how people are feeling out there. And this comment is, he, as in Donald Trump, loves America and is great with policy, according to one of our poll respondents. Tara, anything to add after seeing some of those comments populate on screen?
You know what I love about it? I love that both Democrats and Republicans, Trump supporters and Kamala Harris supporters are all listening. They're listening to the policies and they want the best for America. And I think that's what we're hoping is going to come out of this debate.
Do you think that they are listening for like the average voter? Do you think the average voter is listening for policies, or are they just simply looking at performance to see who looks like they deserve a shot in the White House?
Listen, it's all performative, isn't it? It's politics. And so, everyone's looking to see whose hair looks right, whose outfit looks right, who sounds the slickest. I think we know what to expect from Donald Trump. And I'm coming back to this, but we've got to really see what Kamala Harris brings to the table. And do voters care about that stuff? Absolutely. But I think America is ready to belly up to the bar of taking the medicine of what's good for America, whatever that might be for that individual voter. I think America has a shared vision of wanting their families to be safe, wanting to make sure they can plan for their future and live in a healthy community. And so I'm hoping they're listening, and I'm hoping that besides looking at the haircuts and the outfits, that they're actually paying attention to who's going to take our country forward. And I know that our neighbors and those that are listening want the best for all of us.
I'm going to ask for some final thoughts here in just a second, but I wanted to just touch back on, because while you two study politics, and especially Ty here in Florida, Tara, I mean, you're always talking politics at St. Petersburg College. I study social media and how people consume information. And my goodness, the tenor after the previous presidential debate was less, believe it or not, shockingly, less about Trump and more about Biden and the stuttering moments and the moments where he couldn't, carry on a train of thought and finish some of those points that he had. Tonight, it's going to be really interesting to see when people wake up. Let's be real. There are going to be Americans who aren't going to stay up, especially East Coast, not going to be staying up for the entirety of the debate tonight. Maybe watch for a little bit, and then maybe they're getting ready for bed or something like that. So they're going to be waking up tomorrow morning, and they're going to be checking X. They're going to be checking Facebook for that moment. Any anticipation on how big of a campaign strategy that is, Tara, having the zinger moment, the one that resonates through social media on Wednesday morning?
I think Ty really, was prophetic about it. And, that's why he's so smart and my good friend. And it is his prophecy that the Harris campaign is got to have that moment. And they've got to have that presidential, yet tough. It's a fine line to walk, but I think people are waiting for it. And I think that they've most likely crafted it so that tomorrow, that clip, that 15 seconds, that 10 seconds is going to hit that American public. And that 18% especially is going to be leaning in. And those that have maybe soft support for her are going to be digging into their support and putting in their lawn sign and really moving forward. I think Donald Trump just has to hold his own and not go off the rails, and he's going to maintain his base. They're very loyal to him, and they will support him through thick and thin.
Ty, 20 seconds, last thoughts.
And when it comes to social media, the former president has been doing a great job at going on podcasts to try to reach male voters. And so it'll be interesting to see what moments he has tonight to also create those quick 10 or 15-second clicks to put on Twitter and social media to continue to reach some of those voters who don't watch the news. They just look at everything on social media. So it's going to be very interesting.
All right. So we are asking you tonight, after the debate is over, who you think won the debate. I'd like to thank political anchor Ty Russell for joining us here on stream. Tara Newsom is going to be back with us after the debate concludes right here on this live stream on WFLA.com, on Facebook and YouTube as well. So you see there in the bottom right-hand portion of your screen, the debate winner poll will be going up in about just under 90 minutes from now on WFLA.com/poll. We'll also be running polls over the course of the coming 90 minutes about each particular segment of the debate, about immigration, about foreign policy, about the economy, trying to get an idea as to who has the upper hand per segment in the debate itself. You can watch on ABC News and other major networks, both on TV and streaming. We will be back with Tara Newsom right after the debate concludes here on your local election headquarters.
couple of months.
Spirited debate on immigration, reproductive rights, foreign policy, and much, much more. Highlights from the first presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Our poll on who you think won the debate is live now on WFLA.com/poll. Welcome into the Stream Center, folks. Let's give you a fresh refresh here on the results. We're going to get to, of course, all of the highlights of tonight's debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, their first presidential debate taking place tonight on ABC News in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with moderators David Muir and Lindsay Davis. You can see right now these are live results coming in to WFLA.com/poll. You go to that URL, or you can click on the link in the description on this video or in the pinned comment here on social media. It is a no sign up, one tap poll where you can vote along, and we're going to keep the results here live on screen. When you do tap on your vote, they populate here on screen, and that's why we see the numbers bouncing here live. It'll probably take several minutes before we have, a vote that we can really feel more confident in. These numbers are going to continue to bounce back and forth. What I'd like to do is bring in my stream partner here tonight, that of course being Tara Newsom from St. Petersburg, college political analyst here for WFLA and WFLA.com. Tara, you were watching, like millions of other Americans, on ABC News, other major networks. Let's just start right off the top. Your biggest number one takeaway. Did it meet your expectations? What were the surprises? A lot to break down tonight.
Absolutely. I think what we really saw was Kamala Harris reminding America about Donald Trump's presidency. It's been a number of years since he's been president, and she really drove home what it was like to have Donald Trump as president. That was my overall takeaway. We have what we call amnesia in America. We forget the news cycle within a day, and she really tried to remind people about his policies and his tenor. And I really think, though, that Donald Trump gave us a snapshot of what the next 4 years will really look like. But my takeaway was this: she really presented what the future was going to look like, and he really represented what his past presidency was like. And so I think voters are really going to be faced with, do they want what they had 4 years with him, or do they want this new vision that she's presenting? But I got to tell you, it was a really interesting, from a political psychology kind of way, to watch the political theater on display for all of America. There was, the initial handshake that Kamala Harris instigated, which of course showed statesmanship and really what we were all taught on the schoolyard at recess, that you shake the hand of someone even if you don't agree before you begin, in good gamesmanship kind of thing. And certainly she didn't get rattled. She held herself with a dignified manner despite the many attacks. But he also did a good job not going into his insult kind of personal attacks. He was extremely disciplined in that way. And so I think they both brought their A game tonight. And I think voters that are really watching and trying to still decide have to sort through all those posturing and really get to the policies and do their own fact checking. That was one of the things that was curious tonight, is that there was a lot of discussion before the debate that there needed to be more fact checking. And of course, the moderators have called themselves now facilitators. That wasn't their job tonight. And so I really encourage viewers to go back and really look into the policies on both candidates, not to their normal and usual places, but really challenge themselves to look for the facts behind what their stances were.
Yeah, I've already seen a gajillion posts on social media to follow fact checking. I've seen fact checks come out in real time, obviously, from each campaign. So there's just tons of information being thrown at Americans tonight. And then it comes down to almost fact checking the fact checks, right?
Absolutely.
We go down quite the rabbit hole. Again, if you're just joining us here on stream, we've activated our poll on WFLA.com/poll. It is a no sign up, one-click poll. And then also there as well, you have the opportunity to leave us a comment, and we will be spotlighting some of those comments, observations, questions, just overall feedback on what you thought of the performances tonight from Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Yeah, interesting start there, Tara, to say the least, with the handshake. You saw Kamala kind of walk across the stage. You didn't know if Donald Trump was going to extend a hand. He did, and then really after that, it was off and running. What was we heard about reproductive rights? We heard about immigration. We heard about foreign policy. We heard a lot about Israel and the Middle East tonight. What was the biggest eyebrow raiser for you, if you will? I thought some of the back and forth pertaining to our January 6th was very interesting as well. What really stood out to you? Because a lot of these have been talking points on the campaign trail going back weeks for Kamala Harris or months for Donald Trump now. So was there something that kind of struck you a little bit differently tonight on those talking points?
The talking points really was replicating what we've heard in lots of different press conferences prior to. I actually think what was somewhat interesting is that it almost appeared as Kamala Harris was sort of baiting Donald Trump with the crowd size comments. And it seemed to work and get under his skin. And that kind of conversation about taking a presidential debate, maybe the only one we're going to see, and taking a number of minutes to debate over crowd size seemed to be a very curious thing. But it also seemed to rattle the usually unrattleable, Donald Trump. But I did and was somewhat shocked by the fact that Donald Trump brought up the Haitian dog-eating conspiracy theory.
That was a moment that got a lot of social media attention.
It did, because it just, I'm sure his campaign is saying, oh, good Lord, let's hope everybody forgets that part. But it's hard to forget that. And I think also his continued discussion about immigration, he's sort of creating a completely opposite narrative that really is opposite of the American story. Most of us can tie our roots to immigration. And so his sort of focus that is this immigration problem that's not connected to facts. He, of course, then said the FBI and reporting is all fake news again. And it's just disorientating. And I think it took away from some of his policy stances that the Republican National Convention really tried to get out there. And so you were distracted by that. I think that kind of happened throughout the entire debate, where once Kamala Harris got under his skin, he was really hard pressed to stay on topic. But to his credit, he did get a number of zingers in on Kamala Harris, and the facilitators certainly allowed for him to have extra time in certain ways to sort of make sure that he shared his viewpoint. And it sort of looked like they gave him deference because he was a former president. She's just vice president. I'm not sure entirely. She certainly ended strong. And when I say that, she really appealed to the American people of her vision going forward. There's been a lot of polling out there, JB, about how America's tired of divisive politics. We tune in because we're curious, but in terms of our everyday life, we want a strong economy, we want strong families, we want a strong environment. And she spoke to that vision, and so I think she really was compelling in that way. But if you're a Trump supporter, he certainly gave you a reason to defend him in the sense that he came forward with the same talking points that he ever has. Another curious point that was really problematic for those of us who are lawyers or who follow the Constitution closely was his defense of the J6, that he really doubled down on that. That's not good for him and his campaign, because America wants the rule of law to apply to everyone. And certainly January 6th had a number of people already prosecuted, especially from Florida, and they should be held to account for defacing our Capitol and for the crimes that were done there. You can't defend individuals who've broken the rule of law because they are politically aligned with you. And he did that on a national presidential debate. And so that was curious as well.
Interesting as well was sort of the dynamic between Donald Trump and David Muir tonight, and talking about the previous presidential election being called into question, and David Muir saying, that there has been acceptance, by a whisker, I believe was the quote, pertaining to, of course, the election from 4 years ago. And then Donald Trump saying, no, my comments were sarcastic. A lot of this is getting lost in translation for the American people. I think one thing that we can say for certain, I think even those who lean blue and are pro Kamala Harris would agree with this, and I think Tara, you would agree with this as well. This was a different Donald Trump tonight than we saw in the first debate with Biden. Certainly more assertive and definitely more aggressive on the debate stage. The dynamic with Biden and Trump was completely almost bizarre and feels like a different like universe at this point.
I totally agree. And I think what's interesting is he came prepared tonight. I thought Donald Trump came prepared for what he believes and what he, wants to champion. Whether that needs to be fact checked or not, that's up to the viewers and those that can go along with that. He came prepared to share his points. He also, if you noticed, never made eye contact with Kamala Harris. He almost biting his cheek, like what I see my kids do when they don't want to talk back to me. He was trying so hard to be disciplined and measured, and to some degree, he probably maintained that for longer than I've ever seen him do it. But there was a moment, especially earlier in the debate, where he started to unravel, and I think we saw that he got louder, he got more assertive. He certainly was prepared with his points, not to say that those are all factually checked. And so it was a different kind of debate. But there was another point that I want to share that I really was unsettled by, and that was the narrative about abortion and his discussion. And I think it's fair to say misrepresentation of abortion laws in America. It really, Kamala Harris did a good job trying to, and so did the moderators or facilitators, trying to explain that what Donald Trump was sharing wasn't actually factually true. But that was unsettling, because you got to remember, there's 46% of America that's listening and supporting him, and they have every right to do that. But you don't have a right to misrepresent the law, and you don't have a right to encourage people to vote for you with things that are mistruths about the other side. That's just not that. Some people might call that politics, but when we're talking about liberties and people's personal rights, that's just that there's no place for that on the debate stage. And I think that kind of thing may turn some of those undecided voters off.
Undecided voters, obviously a crucial target for this particular debate tonight. We'll talk more about undecided voters. We'll talk more about the middle, Tara, here in just a moment. These numbers are really starting to level. I want to remind our audience, this is an unscientific social media-based poll on WFLA.com/poll. You can not only just tap on one candidate or the other, it looks almost exactly like this on your device, whether you're voting on a phone or on a tablet or on your computer, maybe your laptop if you're at home on the couch. Just go to WFLA.com/poll. Just cast your vote. There's no gimmicks or gotcha moments. We're not tracking you or anything like that. It's just a means for us to get an idea as to how you thought tonight's debate went. And then also, too, underneath there, completely optional, you can leave a comment for us. And we are going to start to go through those comments here tonight. Let's go to Teresa. Says Kamala Harris maintained her composure and Trump did not. Harris stated her policies and positions and plans. Trump did not. Harris defended prior positions. Trump did not. Harris was honest. Trump was not. So a lot of back and forth there. Chucky O says Donald in a landslide. Let's see. Diane says Trump won. He spoke truths. She spoke empty promises and falsehoods. Records prove truth. And that's I don't know. It's just it's interesting because now Americans have to find now what to believe because they're hearing conflicting things. You're hearing almost every single solitary time, Tara, and this isn't exclusive to this debate. It's almost every debate now. Every single solitary time a claim is thrown out on one side of the screen, the other side is shaking their head. That's not true. I never said that, or that's was taken out of context, or whatever it may be. How do Americans now determine what to believe is true and what to believe is not true? Are they taking, the candidate that is their preference for their word, or do you think Americans right now are going to their news platform of choice and checking the fact-checking articles and trying to decipher as to whether or not that claim that was, stuck in their mind was true versus not true?
I think voters are very much committed to democracy, okay? And those that are tuning in and paying attention, they want the best for our country. The problem is that we all steer ourselves to media outlets that affirm our already held beliefs, that we know that science has showed us that. And that's the worry that many of us have to having limited sources of media that can give us our information diet. And the hope, though, is that people not only like they do what you said when we opened up tonight, that they fact check the fact checkers. There is everything in our Constitution encourages us to question authority. That's what our entire country is built on. So I would hope that our neighbors and those that are watching would say, hey, listen, even though I really support my team, my party, my candidate, that I'm going to double check, I'm going to triple check, and I'm going to make sure that those policies align with what they said or align with facts. And until we can turn that page, borrowing that term from Kamala Harris, to really do that, we're really stuck in this purgatory, this democratic process of purgatory, because democracy is informed by the voter, and the voter has to make sure they have a robust information diet. So I think we got to challenge ourselves to do the right thing, to go beyond just our traditional media diet, and make sure that we're not just parroting what we've heard from our leaders or from our favorite newspapers or our websites. Listen, in this day and age, our democracy depends on us to tell the truth to one another and to also listen to the truth. And so that's what we need to be doing. I'm not sure there's going to be another presidential debate. You know, when we were talking before, when we were opening and waiting for the debate to go on, we really, there was some talk of having another debate in a couple of weeks. They haven't decided anything. Certainly have the vice presidential debate that's coming up on October 1st. Traditionally, there's only one vice presidential debate, so that's not unusual. But usually there's more than one when it comes to the presidential debate. I don't think we're going to have another one. And there would be really no purpose in it. And I'll tell you why. Tonight, what Kamala Harris did that your viewers that are giving us comments are affirming is she did a very strong job focusing on what her policies would look like. And I think that America is starting to get a real picture of who she is as a person, what her policies are, how they differentiate from Joe Biden, the successes that she built with Joe Biden, and sort of seeing the vision of her going forward. I think they also have a really good idea about who Donald Trump is and what he brings to the table. And they were reminded by Kamala Harris tonight what another presidency with Donald Trump would look like. And I don't see a real purpose for either one of the campaigns unless tomorrow morning we see the fundraising out the roof. I don't see why they would agree to do it again, because it really doesn't seem to really differentiate either candidate from the camps that they came in with.
I happen to think I'm just gonna, it's interesting.
Go for it. Come on.
I happen to believe that policy got watered down and almost lost as the debate went on. I really do. And I'm not here. I'm here down the middle, folks. I'm just here calling balls and strikes. Look, there was a lot of claims being thrown left and right. Tara, you were on the money. There was a lot about the past. Donald Trump, saying, pointing to the last 4 years. Kamala Harris pointing to the 4 years under Donald Trump. There's a lot of past to dissect here, and that of course sets the stage for what we can expect in the future, or voters have to determine whether or not they believe that voting on a candidate's past is going to of course impact the future directly. But I just felt like policy almost got lost as the debate went on. There were some casual promises and notions thrown out there, but actual policy and promises and going through the issue and bullet points and saying this is how I plan to attack this issue, I don't know if it was really there. I mean, look, you can always go to the campaign's website, you can find out where each candidate stands, but was it really there for people to sink their teeth into? People can comment and let me know if they felt like they heard policy tonight. Policy and claims are different things. Policy versus promises are different things. Policy to me are specifics, and I don't know how specific we really got tonight on the issues that David and Lindsay brought up.
I think that's a fair assessment, that as the night went on, it got murky.
Yeah.
But the part where, and I, of course, am down the middle as well. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm looking at this from a political science and constitutional perspective. But what was interesting is when you got to details, Kamala Harris did discuss how she wanted to invest in small businesses, an opportunity economy, how she wanted to have a $25,000 credit for down payments on houses, which in America's history, home ownership has been a huge part about wealth creation and generational wealth transferring, which is really big in disrupting systemic economic issues. And that is especially important to people who the economy hasn't always been accessible.
Right, but wasn't the economy in the first like 5 minutes? Right. I
Well,
mean, you know what I mean?
She did that, but then later she circled back and tried to give the details.
Right.
They talked about, if it got distracting because some of the tenor of it got distracting.
Yes.
But Donald Trump did talk about healthcare, and he did talk about wanting to dismantle Obamacare. He talked about how he saved it,
But
but then
he didn't have a plan. Yeah,
he didn't have a plan, but
concepts.
Kamala Harris did. And so I'm not saying that she's right or he's wrong. I'm just saying I'm not sure that another debate is going to offer an opportunity for him to share a plan. If that plan hasn't already been shared and you're the presidential candidate for the Republican Party, when is it going to be shared? If not now, when?
It's interesting.
So
You have a perfect example. You have Donald Trump who says, and look, there are examples in during his time in office when it comes to foreign policy, examples that you could point to. When I reference this next point, he says that he's just going to be able to come in and end everything between Russia and Ukraine. He wasn't ever able to get specific and say exactly how he would do it.
He did, JB. Well, he did. He's going to pick up that phone before he's even inaugurated, and he's going to solve the all problem. But he didn't explain anything more than saying, "I'll get him on the phone."
Right.
On the phone.
Getting them on the phone. There's more to it than just. It would have been very fascinating, I think, for the American public to hear more about exactly. Donald Trump, I think, made the promise on that point to do it even as president-elect, that he wouldn't even have to take office for that conflict to come to an end. That conflict, folks, is years now between Russia and Ukraine. So, it was interesting. Trump certainly aggressive tonight, and I think that's the type of debate performance that people that have come to be in Trump's corner have come to expect from him. I think that if you're a Trump supporter tonight, you are looking at this and you're like, that's my guy. I've talked to enough people that are vehemently 100% loyal to Donald Trump, who would unequivocally say tonight, this is the type of presidency that I want. This is what I am voting for based on the tenor that we had tonight. And then what's really interesting, and exactly what you noted, Tara, is that this was in a way a bit of a coming out for Kamala Harris. We haven't really seen her on this stage, and now what's really interesting. We know that the Trump base, without question, is going to be galvanized by Trump's performance tonight. We're seeing the numbers here on your screen, folks. These are live numbers coming in from WFLA.com/poll. It'll be very interesting to see some of the sound bites, the man on the street type stuff. Like, what did you think of Kamala Harris tonight? If you're a Democratic voter or you're an independent voter or an undecided voter, what did you think of Kamala tonight? Because this was her opportunity to let the world know how she would attack 4 years in office.
We started this morning on the station talking about who was bringing the pressure, who felt pressure. And it wasn't Donald Trump. He's already been on the presidential debate stage. This is his 7th time. All the pressure was on Kamala Harris. And she performed. She didn't crack. She didn't give in. She spoke eloquently. She didn't get flustered. The optics were strong. But is that enough to move the undecided voter? We know that the Trump supporters are loyal and will be celebrating his performance as a win. But will Kamala Harris be able to win over enough of that razor thin margin that she needs to win the race? You got to remember, the polling right now is statistically a dead heat. They're in almost all the states are in a margin of error. So, some days you'll see Donald Trump kind of edging up, some days you'll see Kamala Harris, but it's all within that window. And so what tonight we were really watching is, can Kamala Harris, can she deal with the pressure, and can she seem like a statesman? Can she articulate herself enough to understand what her vision is? And she did. And Donald Trump gave us who he is. It did not surprise me in his behavior at all. He, presented in the same playbook that he has given us in the past. And I think that appeals to a lot of American voters. They like that show of strength in that aggressive and assertive manner. But I think when it comes to issues, that's when he might start losing some of the undecideds and the peel away to Kamala Harris, especially when it comes to the women's issues. There's one thing that I wanted to say, that when you talk about sound bites, that I think is going to come up tomorrow morning and in the news. When he tried to use the same tactic that she used with Pence in the last vice presidential election, and he turned to her and say, "I'm talking right now. Shh." Or he did it twice at least, where he shushed her. Listen, as a woman, as a professional woman who's been teaching for 25 years and has been a lawyer for 25 years, I really don't like it when men shush me. And so I'm not sure that is going to play well with women voters, especially those that we're looking at on the fence, that suburban mom that might say, his stance on women issues is really unmeasured and untold. I mean, he's got this kind of narrative about, is it states' rights? Will he do an abortion ban? Will he not? He hedged on that and said, I won't have to do that because it's in the states' hands. Well, what happens if we actually flip the House and the Senate and we have a national bill? What will he do? He refused to answer that. And then the shushing of Kamala Harris and sort of the tenor that goes along with him because of his convictions on sexual assault, I think that's enough to make some of those women on the edge sort of rethink whether or not he's their candidate or not. I can't say that the performance tonight was enough to push the other way, but I can certainly tell you that no woman likes to be shushed.
All right. So a developing story that we were just informed about in the WFLA newsroom, and this news is massively significant in the United States. From a pop culture standpoint, we've just been told, and as confirmed here, within minutes of the conclusion of the debate, superstar singer Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris for president. I'm going to read the final paragraph here. You can read it on her Instagram. This is a caption from her Instagram. That's the picture. It's Taylor Swift and her cat.
And a cat.
And her cat. And I'll read as follows. I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is a steady-handed, gifted leader. I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who's been standing up for LGBTQ plus rights, IBF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. Folks, this is massively significant, especially with a younger generation of Americans, a generation of Americans that where they fall on the political spectrum. Of course, you can look at research, but this is going to get a whole lot of attention, and it already has with 1 million likes. 1 million likes on Instagram in 12 minutes.
JB, just to give it you perspective.
That's mind blowing. We're talking like Ellen DeGeneres at the Oscars type stuff right now. I mean, talk about the internet exploding over one singular post. It's happening right now on Taylor Swift's Instagram. And again, do not underscore how massive of a deal this is because of how worshipped Taylor Swift is amongst her, as they call them, Swifties, of course.
Absolutely. Millennials and Gen X's account for 44% of the electorate. And Taylor Swift appeals to many of them. And so I think that this endorsement is a game changer for Harris. And I think that Donald Trump maybe needs to be a little concerned about the cat ladies. I love the irony of that post. She's certainly nodding to JD Vance's comments about cat ladies and his continued narrative about how they don't contribute to civic life or the economy and don't care about America, which is clearly bunk with whatever party that you subscribe to. And so I think we can't underestimate that the younger voters who are a huge part of the electorate, who are somewhat turned off. And by the way, I didn't share this earlier, but let me share it now. I was doing a focus group with younger voters, anywhere from 19 to 22, and even a small sect that is all the way to 35. And you know what? They just were like, nah, this debate is more of the same. You know, she looks okay. He's the same. They're not saying anything new. I'm tired of all the fighting. They may not have leaned into the debate, but they're definitely going to lean in to this endorsement.
Yeah, this is there's people in our comment section who are downplaying this, and that's totally the prerogative of our commenters. I totally understand people who do not see tremendous political value in this, but I would respond in this way. If you believe the polls, if you look at the previous election and how close it was decided and how close the polls are now, anything that can move the needle a little bit is going to potentially have enormous impacts on the future of our country because of who might actually win the election. And this doesn't have just the potential to be a slight needle mover. This could be a moderate to major needle mover, depending, of course, on how this resonates with younger Americans that maybe were on the fence about voting, or maybe we're down the middle, maybe we're undecided. There's going to be a massive referendum, a look, an examination of how this is going to impact the election. You're gonna see news stories about before tonight and after tonight, and the pivot point isn't just going to be the debate. It's going to be this post. Again,
it's BS before Swift endorsement and after AS after Swift. You know what? You're 100% right, because JP, remember back when she encouraged people to do voter registration in time, and she had hundreds of thousands of voter registration applicants going through her website so she could track. She wields enormous societal power, enormous cultural power. And why this is really interesting to me as a political scientist is because, remember, there is a lot of political socialization that happens at home. And I don't disparage that at all. We all have family values that we like in our own intimate nuclear family. This sort of puts a kink in that, because, you know, young women who may be in a family that has always supported Republican candidates are now going to be faced with whether or not they are going to be socialized politically by one of America's greatest artists right now, and who the greatest influence. And we see that through her economic impact on our communities. Look at what her concerts did in the Tampa Bay area.
Sure. She
So-
sells out everywhere. To the point where they're adding shows and trying to get into a venue. We've talked about it on stream in the past. It's something we've really never seen before in our country.
So she can really change the outcome. This endorsement can really change the outcome of the election. You know, I want to remind everybody too that it's these very close swing states, whether you call the blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, or the Southern strategy states, which is Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia. Those states, those 7 states, you know, we're looking at how will Taylor Swift affect those political strategies. And if they can just deliver a little bit for the Harris campaign, it could be a complete game changer on the electoral college map. And so, I guarantee overnight we're going to be seeing how this part of the electorate, that the percentages of women that actually tune into Taylor Swift, how much of the electorate they are in those swing states, and how that could affect the outcome of the election.
It's going to be, well, look, it's interesting, the timing of this, no doubt. So just kind of reading between the lines here, this was a very lengthy post. Looks like it was very much prepared ahead of time. And it came out, so 20 minutes. So it came out within 20 or so minutes of the debate ending. How prepared was this? Was this, how much planning and strategy went into this? Because to do this on debate night is a very deliberate move. This could have been done. Could have been done tomorrow. This could have been done at any point in the election cycle. It was done within 20 minutes of the conclusion of the debate. So I'm just reading between the lines here and trying to understand how orchestrated this was, and taking nothing away from Taylor Swift's endorsement. She, as an American, has of course, she can state her. It's our, our constitutional
First
right
Amendment
to be able
right,
to.
babe.
That's right, to be able to voice our political affiliation and be able to verbalize it and share it and bring others onto your sort of playing field if you'd like. It's just interesting to me, with somebody who carries such tremendous influence, it's happening within 20 minutes of the conclusion of the debate. It'll be interesting to see how this gets received and processed in the hours and days ahead.
JB, absolutely, she had this prepared, but you have to recognize Taylor Swift isn't just an international superstar. She's also a very savvy businesswoman, and she's also very savvy about how she influences and socializes culture. And we know that from her voter registration efforts that we just talked about. But you have to admit, it's quite a distraction from those that want to be picking apart Kamala Harris's performance, nitpicking where she may have been able to do better or not. When you're facing Taylor Swift's endorsement, you have less to talk about with Kamala Harris's possible criticisms, and more to talk about the fact that one of the greatest superstars that we've ever had is endorsing her, and she's bringing with her all the Swifties across the country. So it was very savvy, very smart, very strategic. Her iconic picture of her and her cat certainly tells Donald Trump and JD Vance what she thinks about those comments, and sort of pokes fun at the whole thing as well. So she has good humor, and I think good timing strategically, and I think it's really going to do the job that she intended, which is now we're going to be talking about the swell of support of Swifties behind Kamala Harris, rather than whether or not she wore the right outfit.
And I want to offer the flip side, though, Tara, because I know there are going to be people out there who are going to look at this and say their response is going to be, why couldn't we with such a massive night for our country, why couldn't we let the policies and the claims and the debate performances be the headliner tonight? Why there are going to be people who are going to say, why couldn't this have happened, down the line? And I know I'm already seeing the comments come in now. So I'm just trying to, be as fair here as I can be.
It's politics. It's all fair in politics, and the minute Donald Trump came down on a golden escalator, he knew that optics were important. He, he has these really colorful rallies. He understands marketing. I bet if asked privately if he thought this was a good move, he would say it was brilliant. So, this is politics, and this is how the game is played, and this is how the game is won. And so I give, whether or not we're talking about the debate or not, I give the Harris campaign a check in the win box for timing this endorsement. And I think it's going to energize many of us watching to see what was really going to come out of this debate, because the two camps came in with their minds already set up, their arms crossing. This is how it's going to be. And I think this Taylor Swift endorsement is really tipping the scale for Harris, and really is going to change the direction. Don't you remember back when Obama was running and Beyonce got behind him and all these,
there's always
it got everybody excited and made his candidacy seem more hip, more fresh, more young. And that was the criticism of both candidates when Biden and Trump were running. And Kamala Harris listened, and her campaign is listening. And now Taylor Swift is a surrogate. Holy smokes. You got Taylor Swift as almost a surrogate for Kamala Harris. That's pretty good.
Let's talk campaign strategy for a second. And then I want to move back to the poll. I don't want to let this hijack the night. I'd like to. It's massive developing news, and it would be irresponsible for us to not bring it up and talk about the impact. So we are touching on Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris tonight, but I'd like participation from our audience. YouTube Live, Facebook Live. We have a lot of people watching tonight. Is there anyone on the other side? Is there anyone relatively realistic that carries that much weight, that much moxie, if you will, that much influence, that could be lined up on the Trump side, that would be a Swift level endorsement for Donald Trump? If you're Donald Trump, okay, your response is, I need someone to come out who carries tremendous cultural and societal influence to back me now to, grab headlines later this week and grab momentum back in my favor. Is there anyone that comes to mind? I'm asking the chat, Facebook, YouTube. Is there anybody out there that comes to mind that would be that person? Tara, do you wanna hop in there? Does anybody come to mind on your end?
Well, the person that I was thinking of has held themselves out as an independent for many years, but this election has already endorsed Kamala Harris, and that's Oprah, because Oprah has been traditionally an independent. And although she liked Obama, she pulled away and said, listen, I'm not going to vote by party.
Yeah, but Oprah's not going Trump.
No, she's not, but she's the only level of person in our country that I think could actually combat that. And she's already endorsed Harris. I mean, it's very difficult to underestimate the impact that the youth vote, which I study, could impact the election. When I say there's enough new voters and young voters, and we're not talking the alpha generation, they're too young to vote, but we're talking Gen Z, we're talking millennials. These are individuals that are fairly young, and they have, like I said, 44% of the electorate. They could come out and change the entire election. If she peels away even a portion of them for Harris, she's done her job. I can't imagine another individual in our society that would align with Donald Trump, but help me. I would love from the viewers to help me tonight.
There's one interesting name that's coming up repeatedly in our comment section, and it's fascinating. This is why I love interactive work, is because we can throw this question to the chat and see exactly how they're feeling. And one name that is coming up, has already pretty much staked their claim on which side of the political conversation they are on between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Somebody who carries tremendous influence because they own one of the most widely used social media platforms in the country, and that's Elon Musk. Elon Musk, but Elon Musk has already obviously has stated that he is, obviously voting Republican in this election. So, and he's extremely vocal on X, talking about his support for conservative values, his support of Donald Trump and the policies that he supports. It's kind of, that's already done. I'm trying to think of somebody.
Already done, and then JB's also got the problem of the quid pro quo, and not to say that Elon Musk doesn't hold an enormous amount of persuasive power, but that quid pro quo that Donald Trump introduced last week, where he said, if I become president, I'm going to elevate Elon Musk to this new regulatory agency. That sort of makes people uncomfortable a little bit because it's a pay to play kind of thing. But he's also controversial in himself, so I'm not sure that's the right candidacy or that's the right surrogate that would bring the same star power as Harris. But let's go back to, and I don't want it to hijack it, but I want to go back to Taylor Swift's post. Her last line is, "Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make." Regardless of Taylor Swift endorsing, I love that sentiment that tonight, and regardless of her comments, we saw two candidates on the debate presenting two different types of America. And I think that all of us need to really dig in and decide and do our research and really take this seriously, because some of the claims from the Harris campaign regarding Donald Trump are scary. If they're true, if implementing Project 2025 is true, then we have a lot of work to do. If, militarizing our communities is true, there's a lot of work to do. If taking away women's bodily sovereignty, we have a lot of work to do. If squashing political opponents, overturning democracy, not following the Constitution, having a second January 6th, those are things that we got to really research. Is that really true? Is it not true? Will Kamala Harris really be strong enough to fight Putin and other autocrats in Europe? Will she make us pay the bill every time? Those are things that we need to do the research. So regardless of what else she wrote, I think that reminder to all of that young voter and to all of us is really a good one.
Last thing on Taylor Swift, and then we'll move back on. The numbers here are now jumping in favor of, we've seen a steady climb. Coincidence that we're talking about Taylor Swift's endorsement, and then all of a sudden we see Kamala Harris's numbers start to overtake Donald Trump's? Look, this is an unscientific social media-based poll. You can go to WFLA.com/poll to cast your own vote. No sign-up required. But last thing I'll say about Taylor Swift. Again, there are people in the chat who are downplaying or disregarding the Taylor Swift endorsement. That's your right, of course, to, Taylor Swift is endorsing Kamala Harris. It's your right as an American, your First Amendment right to be able to say, I don't think that carries much weight. I don't think that's a big deal. But I will tell you this. To the people in our comment section, and this is just an honest question, to the people in our comment section who are downplaying the Taylor Swift endorsement, have you ever been to a Taylor Swift concert?
Or to the parking lot of a Taylor Swift concert?
The overflow around the arena. I mean, we're talking about venues that normally fill, college football game day to capacity, filling it up, and then overflow capacity usually being filled up, and then multiple nights back to back to back for Taylor Swift. Her influence is massively significant. How it translates to the political arena, how it galvanizes the youth vote, whether it galvanizes the youth vote. Also, too, you have to, of course, be a certain age in this country to cast a vote. A lot of Taylor Swift fans are, of course, going to trend even, younger way into the early teenage years. So there's a lot to dissect here. There's going to be endless articles and research done as to the cause and effect of Taylor Swift's endorsement. But to the people that are saying it's not a big deal in our comment section, I talk to someone who has gone to a Taylor Swift concert and listened for multiple hours of people screaming until their vocal cords are shot. I mean, we're talking about a level of enthusiasm here, a level of loyalty. I mean, look, Donald Trump commands tremendous political loyalty among his base. Taylor Swift and Swifties command tremendous loyalty as well. I mean, people love who they love. Donald Trump is loved by MAGA supporters. Taylor Swift is loved by Swifties. There's just people that love what they love, and you have to you can't disregard one and believe in the other. The influence is influence. So that's the last thing I'll say on it. Our numbers are bouncing here, Tara. This is we've had. Now let's talk about the debate. Let's talk about the candidates. Let's talk about our poll tonight. Let's stay on track here as best we can, even though we did go off there on the very apropos for a debate night for us to go out on a tangent a little bit and talk about Taylor Swift. We are up to nearly 30,000 votes in this poll, which is significant for a digital poll. Again, unscientific because we're not using scientific methods to sample our audience and retrieve votes that way. It is a simple one-click, no sign-up poll on WFLA.com/poll. Your thoughts on these numbers, how they've shifted over the last 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll get into some comments before, look, we can't stream forever. The night is, yeah.
Let me just comment quickly about what could also be moving this. There was a few times during the debate that Kamala Harris really leaned in and really, I think, extended her hand to moderates. And one of those times was when she made sure that viewers knew that she owned a gun and that Coach Walls owned a gun, right? And so that was really her signaling that she's much more moderate on some of these possible issues that people care about that might have them on the fence. I think that could also be driving some of these numbers, that she's not quite the crazy liberal that the Republican Party has painted her. So I think that had some influence. I also think she was the candidate that brought up the environment and climate change. That was extremely powerful because even though inflation, Palestine and Israel conflict are at the top of mind for most Americans, according to the polls, after that is, of course, abortion rights, which we've already talked about, and then climate change. And we live in Florida. Many of us receive that a horrific letter in the mail every year saying you're being reconsidered for your home insurance and we're just waiting to be dropped. And so she really spoke to many Americans when she spoke to that about how climate change is affecting not only our future, our existential ability to persist as a people, but our pocketbooks, whether we can afford to stay in our homes. Some people's home insurance is just as much as their mortgage. And so that really showed that she cared about issues beyond those that really burdened the first part of the debate. And so some of these numbers that we're seeing might be from people digesting the entirety of the debate. Right when we hopped on, it's a little shocking sometimes to see the combativeness that our political landscape has turned into. We don't all live in that conflict-laden environment. And so I think it takes time for people to process what both of the candidates bring to the table, what they really said, and what, even though there wasn't heavy on the policy, what little bit of breadcrumbs were left. What do they agree with? And so although this isn't scientific, it certainly does lead us to believe that maybe Kamala Harris made her case tonight as that prosecutor, as that attorney general, as that U.S. senator, and made the case that she's not as liberal as being told that she is, and that she really is that middle-class American that can take us into the future.
I'm curious. I'm trying to think about the aftermath of the debate. Kamala goes back to her campaign leadership. Donald Trump goes back to his campaign leadership and the conversations that are had. I think it's entirely fair tonight to evaluate these performances and try to do so as down the middle as humanly possible and try to be as objective as possible and say this. It's up to the American people as to who won the debate tonight, but I'm not sure if we have a clear loser. The previous debate was so different in that it was jaw-dropping that we had that level of a loss, a solid L from Joe Biden, to the point where the entire Democratic Party is reeling and reevaluating the future of the party. And it was that much of a eye-opening, jaw-dropping performance to where we had most of America would agree that there was a loser that night. I think it's fair to say we didn't have a loser tonight. Kamala Harris might have gone back to campaign leadership on her end and was high-fiving people, and Donald Trump might have been high-fiving people too. It was probably celebratory on both because they probably felt like they both had moments where they got out their message, that they felt like they both had zingers, that they both had those moments that could, take off on social media tomorrow morning. So I'm curious if the chat agrees. Tara, I'm curious if you agree that it's up to America to decide as to who won tonight, but there wasn't a, clear-cut, obvious loser.
I think you absolutely summed it up, JB. And I think that's what makes this so hard, because when you watch the debate, you really saw what you expected. Donald Trump supporters expected him to come out tough, assertive, aggressive, tell his story, and narrate it the way that he saw it, the way that he's been doing at his rallies. And that's what he delivered. But Kamala Harris delivered what we saw from an extension from the Democratic National Convention, which was this more statesly kind of, olive branch extender. She was sort of extending voters an olive branch of saying, come to the party, come to my side of the fence if you want to end divisiveness. There was no clear loser. I think you can't really say it any better than that. But there wasn't either a clear winner necessarily. And so the problem, though, is that we're still left with having to do our own research and what sometimes we call me search. What are the issues that I care about, and find out how the candidates really stand on that. Tomorrow morning, I'm sure one of the things we're going to be looking at to really determine this a little bit greater than what we're talking about is fundraising. We're absolutely going to have all eyes on whether Donald Trump's fundraising has gone up or whether Kamala Harris's has. And what we've known in the past month, Kamala Harris has out fundraised Donald Trump like 3-1. And we're talking $500 million in the last month. So, if that is amplified from this debate process, although perhaps performatively, they both won, or they both, neither one of them lost, the money always talks. And so we're going to wait for that press release that comes out and tells us, hey, how much did each one of the campaigns raise? And that's going to be telling us how much of that needle did each one of the candidates move.
I always appreciate a grounded approach, because we also know how influential campaign finances are when it comes to the outcome of an election. Tara, what we're going to do, we're going to play a dangerous game. If we can, to end out our live stream tonight. To people that are going to WFLA.com/poll, starting now, if you type in your comment in that form, we're going to start to animate them on screen. And we're not going to put up any nasty comments or comments that are completely, baseless, or ones that have, expletives in it. No, we're going to try to please give us your honest assessment of how these candidates or your candidate performed tonight. And I'd like to give as many people on the live stream tonight an opportunity to have their voice heard. So go to WFLA.com/poll. If you already voted, it's okay. You'll see right underneath there's the optional form to put in your name and your comment. It doesn't even have to be your real name. You can put in a username. We're just going to try to get as many comments on screen, because I would like to give as many people a voice here as possible. So let's go to Sherry. Let's start with Sherry. Sherry says, our economy sucks, and Harris was already VP. Tara, I'll kind of go to you rapid fire here. A lot of finger pointing tonight to Harris and what she's accomplished as vice president.
First off, constitutionally, the vice president doesn't have a lot of power. So it's difficult to align your perception of the economy to the vice president if constitutionally they don't have the power to impact it. But the evidence shows we have the lowest unemployment in history. Largest infrastructure bill was passed under Biden-Harris, with huge investments around the country spurring economic growth. So I don't know what the evidence is, other than the same thing that I'm facing, I'm sure the viewer is facing, which is price of gas is up, price of bread is up, price of eggs are up, and that stinks. But as vice president, she doesn't necessarily have the ability to impact that directly. And you also have to remember that inflation, just like Donald Trump tried to claim that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden came into the office and rode on his coattails, there is some economic principles that would say that inflation was a natural outcome of the pandemic. And so just be thoughtful when we're making these comments and really think it through and ask those tough questions.
Bryson says Kamala undoubtedly won. Her professionalism and ability to speak directly to the American people spoke volumes against her competitor. Betty says at least Trump is consistent. Kamala talks about pretty ideas and not policy. We were talking earlier about how some people believe, that there wasn't enough policy discussed tonight.
I think that just leads us to believe is the policy, because we said, especially when we're talking about healthcare, and he offered, well, I don't really have a firm plan. I'm not president. That's okay. But we're going to vote for the president. We want to know whether or not he's going to be able to carry forward some kind of healthcare or not. And that's okay either way, but he wasn't able to present that. So, when we're looking for policy, we can't cherry pick. We got to look, is Project 2025 from the Heritage Foundation his policy or not? He didn't necessarily clarify that for us. So I just would wonder, we have to have evidence and facts behind what we all say. And I wasn't sure that we got, like you said earlier, enough from either of the candidates to really say one way or the other.
We have this one from D saying he won. She didn't answer most questions. Do you think that Kamala deflected at all tonight?
I think they both did. I think that she was asked regarding signing a national abortion ban. She said she would. And then there were some follow-up questions about some other things that she didn't quite answer. But he also didn't answer if he was going to sign a national abortion ban. So, I mean, that's part of the debate strategy. Again, I think we need to do our due diligence and try to find those answers for ourselves. But honestly, and Dee, I totally respect your opinion. I didn't think either one of them completely answered any of the questions asked. I think that they came fully prepared to tell their story and their narrative, and they did that, not always answering what the facilitators or the folks on the stage were asking them.
The comments are coming in so quickly, folks, that it's difficult for me to read them. The longer ones, I really appreciate the enthusiasm we have tonight, but I can't read them all because they're so long. So some are going to make it through, but I am doing my very best to give as many, comments from both sides. Whenever I stream, I'm always talking about both sides and doing the best that I can to make sure that as many voices on each side are heard. Cole says Trump actually answered the questions. Kamala tried dancing around most questions because she has no idea how to fix things, especially since she can't fix them already in office. And Tara, you had talked about the limited power that the vice president has. William says Trump is the best person for our country, economy, border, getting U.S. out of wars or getting us out of wars. Trump 2024. This is interesting. Oh, wait, did I lose it? See, they're coming in so fast. There was a comment about the performance of the moderators tonight. Real quick, Tara, because I'm trying to get through as many comments here as possible. Your thoughts on David Muir and Lindsay Davis?
There's been a lot of praise for them on social media, and I thought they did a solid job. I would like to have fair time for both candidates, and at times it looked like it gave more deference to the president. I think that they didn't necessarily have the rules to enforce fact-checking on the debate stage. And I think that's problematic for many voters that are not only listening to the debate, but like you said, getting their news tomorrow in a fast soundbite. And if they're getting it from that debate and it wasn't fact-checked and stopped by the moderators, that might be a problem in our misinformation diet.
Wembert says, I believe that Kamala Harris did an outstanding job tonight, astounding job tonight. Trump was being arrogant as usual. I hated the idea that he refers to the VP as she.
And that JB, that goes to our comments earlier about whether or not he appealed to women, the woman vote, that suburban woman that is on the fence, that many elections are won or lost by. And that is a hiccup tonight. Not only on abortion, but on his tenor and how he held himself and how he wouldn't look at her and how he sort of dismissed her and shushed her and she'd her. That's not a great look when, our communities are run by women, our families are run by women, and women are 51% of the breadwinners in America. So I don't think that's going to play well with the woman vote.
Leo says Kamala won the debate by far. Trump was defensive all the time, blaming her for the current economy. Again, trying to get to as many before we have to wrap up here in about 5 minutes time, folks. Let's see. Buddha Mojo. Harris commanded the night and came off as sane and open. Trump was just attacking with lies. Cameo says my vote is for Kamala. She has plans in place for our economy. She has integrity. She's straightforward, honest. She brings dignity and humanity to the forefront. I'll tell you what. There's a lot of comments here that I would click on that are praising Trump and attacking Harris, but they contain bad words. So I can't click on comments, you guys, that have bad words in them. And so also, too, that's against what we believe in here with interactivity. So just try to keep it clean so I can actually spotlight your comment, because there are good points here, but then they throw in like an insult at the end, and I can't show the comment then.
JB, as you're trying to rifle through, trying to find the comments that you can read, let me just offer that there was some good points that Donald Trump brought on to the debate stage regarding Harris's involvement with the Ukraine. And I think that left a lot of people trying to figure out what was her role prior to Russia invading the Ukraine. And I'm certainly going to do my research on trying to figure out where she was in that negotiation. I think that's a good point from people that support Trump, that we need to dig into that. But I do think that when, like right now, I'm seeing Samuel say Trump pointed out Kamala's downfalls and answered the questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure that he did. And I say that only because we still don't know really where he stands on abortion. We still don't know really where he stands on healthcare. And we have a good idea on where he stands on the environment, but we're not entirely sure that any of his former advisors support his economic plan. And certainly the letters that came out, 18 military leaders said they don't support Trump. So his former military allies are no longer supporting him. He didn't really get to all that.
Other comments coming in. There's a lot of comments suggesting that, what people watched tonight was a debate where Kamala dodged questions, failed to answer questions like Terry Robinson here. C. Pauley is almost defending Kamala Harris here. This is some of the back and forth going on in our chat right now. She was very vague on her stance, but her record shows, I would imagine what C. Pauley is saying here, her record shows, that what I would imagine what she's getting. It's difficult to fill in the lines here, fill in the gap, but obviously pointing to her previous record, I just,
I think that's fair, but let me just make sure in our last waning moments that, we're here, of course, to dissect and understand what we just shared, but we're also here because we believe in civil discourse, right, JB? I mean, that's what you're all about, bringing everybody to the table and talking about ideas. That's the whole purpose of pluralism. And one of the things I think is important that we all do is that when we have an opinion, that we back it up with evidence. I would love to talk more with your viewers about, if you believe she was vague, help me and everyone else see your point by saying she said this, this, and this, or this, and this. That kind of evidence-based civic discussion is what our country's all about. I think both sides of the aisle need it, and we need your viewers to help us get there when they post their questions.
Jerry says, I think President Trump did very well or done very well against 3 people. Jerry
Oh,
clearly insinuating here believes that
the
things were
moderators.
stacked against Trump with the 2 moderators, David Muir and Lindsey Davis. Again,
I'm
this is
really curious if anybody has anything to say, JB, about the harshness on immigration that he brought to the table. You know, there's been so many reports that actually say that his data and statistics about immigrants being a larger portion of crime in our country, and it's debunked that as not true. And then really went after immigrants. Most of us are the product of families of immigration. I mean, only one nation, Native Americans, are really those that are lay claim to the land underneath our feet. So if the United States Chamber of Commerce supports immigration because they know it's good for our economy, and we just need to figure out how to fix some of the issues. What are we going to do if we deport 11 million people? I haven't heard any comments on that. I'd be really interested to hear if anyone says anything about that.
there is a lot of comments in our comments section about immigration, also eating dogs. Our comment section is interesting right now, to say, as you would expect after a presidential debate that in certain moments went off the rails a bit. And we'll spotlight just a couple more here, but really quick, I just have to point this out. It's worth stating that Taylor Swift post is up to 3 million likes in 1 hour. 3 million people reacting to that post. Again,
can you only imagine at 6 a.m. when we wake up
oh my,
and you triangulate between her posts, her endorsement, and those fundraising dollars? I'm just saying, I hate to distill it down to money, but that's where it's at. And so, you know, the morning is going to tell a different story about who won the debate, and it's really going to be the money talks.
I'm really curious. You know that right now with the Trump campaign, they're formulating a response, because inevitably Trump is going to be asked about the Taylor Swift endorsement, and how he responds to that is going to be, I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting because of the influence that she carries.
If I were advising the Trump campaign, I would ignore it. If you go after Taylor Swift, you go after every one of our favorite daughters across this country, and mothers too, because both mothers and daughters go to those Taylor Swift, and husbands and brothers and boyfriends. And, this is one of those times that this could be really, I'm talking textbooks written about Taylor Swift's endorsements. And I think that it's fair to say that Donald Trump came into this debate with 46% of America supporting him, and he's going to walk out of it with 46%. That's not who's deciding the election. It's those undecided and those moderates that are going to peel away. And how he responds to not only criticism of his debate, but also Taylor Swift is really going to change the direction of the campaign.
Clicking here on just more comments, just sometimes what's our chats sometimes humorous. Sometimes people will say, I love them both. I wish I could vote for them both. And clearly I think it's a troll based comment. And then other people who when we asked, where we said, hey, neither candidate lost tonight, the comment section just blew up. People said us as viewers were losers, which it was something actually we saw more with the first presidential debate. When they
but that's fair, JB. That's fair, considering the fact that most people watching got a little bit of the policy, but not the full picture, like we talked about earlier. And that's really what this is about, right? This isn't a popularity contest, or shouldn't be. And so I think that's a fair comment from your viewer.
I really appreciate a bit of overtime here from Tara Newsom. Our live stream just really received quite an audience. To everybody who's been watching here, we really appreciate you tuning in tonight and us trying to go interactive with you and spotlight as many comments as possible. We tried to be as fair as possible when it came to the interactivity and spotlighting as many comments from both sides. I want to point out, while this appears frozen, the numbers are actually live. So I can tell you right now exactly how many people have. It's within 200 votes.
Wow.
These numbers are still being tabulated. We're up to nearly 40,000 votes in this poll tonight, but it's 51-49 by a hair. It's as
JP,
close to 50-50 as you're going to get.
It is, and that's what we're looking at the general election is going to be. And that's why everyone needs to get out and vote. And they really need to do, whether you like Taylor Swift or not, to take heed to her last comment in her post, which is do your research, make sure you know who you're voting for and why, because this is going to be a razor thin election and we need everyone's contribution to democracy. I got to tell you what, I really appreciate your viewers giving us comments. I learn from them. I think about them. I think that that's what this process is all about. I appreciate their different perspectives, and I think we're better for it as a democracy. So
we're in the
it's
tens
good
of thousands of comments, by the way. We have Facebook, YouTube, and WFLA.com comments coming in, and they are just exploding on my screen. I'll bring up the Stream Center here for just a second to show everybody. This screen here has just been, and I mean, I don't know how well everybody can see it, but it's just been endless scrolling of comments coming in, sometimes just too fast for me to even read comments before they disappear. So Tara, clearly voter enthusiasm and political enthusiasm, which is of course great to see.
I love it. I love it. I love that people are paying attention, and whoever you vote for, just get out there and vote and do your homework. And I think that the fact that we have this many people tuning in means they know how serious this election is. They know what's at stake, not just democracy, not just women's rights, not just the environment, not just Israel and Palestine, but their own families, their own homes, their own pocketbooks, their communities. And, it's really exciting that people are paying attention and leaning in.
We have crossed into Wednesday. I'd like to point out really quickly as we wrap up the live stream, the poll is still live. So we'll be continuing to tabulate, poll votes over the course of the overnight hours and into the morning. We want to give people an opportunity when they wake up to be able to perhaps if, for whatever reason they were unable to watch the debate tonight, if they watch, highlights, if they get a transcript, if they watch the entirety of the debate, if they do it in their spare time, they'll be given the opportunity to vote on WFLA.com/poll. So we're leaving the poll open, and I want to make that clear that we're still having votes come in even at this very moment. I'd like to give a very warm applause to Tara Newsom. It was not anticipated.
Right back at you, JB. Right back at you.
Going this late into the night, literally into Wednesday. The floor is yours. Any final thoughts, final comments, and anything else you'd like to share?
I think really tonight what we saw was a great demonstration of two different Americas, one presented by Donald Trump and one presented by Kamala Harris. And really, Kamala Harris, I think, did a good job presenting what her vision of America is going to be. And Donald Trump reaffirmed what we knew his vision was. And I think it's up to each one of us to take our citizenship seriously, dig into the facts, and then make sure that we come out on November 5th and vote. Thank you so much for spending the evening with me. I will see you all at 6:30 in the morning.
What's at 6:30 in the morning?
Oh, you got to come out and watch the morning show on WFLA.
Oh my God, they booked you? You didn't tell me that.
Oh, I love you guys.
Oh man, WFLA political analyst Dr. Tara Newsom.
Hey, I would love JB to see these, to see if they could share these results in the morning to see what happened.
We're sharing it with our morning team, and of course, what will the results look like tomorrow morning? I want to point out one more time, these results are so close. In fact, I'm surprised that the way that the decimals have worked out, that we're not at 50-50. We're probably right on the precipice of this looking 5-0-5-0. It's the separation at this moment is almost exactly 200 votes among now 41,000. So it's 51 by a hair, you guys. I think that this just is very much on par with some of the polling numbers that we have seen. But we'll monitor this over the course of the night. One more time, a big thank you to Dr. Tara Newsom of St. Petersburg College, who will be with us tomorrow morning on WFLA News Channel 8. You can continue to read more from your local election headquarters. That's us, WFLA.com. For Tara Newsom, I'm JB Buno. Thanks you so much for watching. We'll see you next time, folks.
Bye.